Hello and welcome to this video dealing with the problem of over-oaked homebrew. In a manner of speaking, over-oaking your homebrew is like over-spicing your food. Unlike food, you can sometimes take out the oak flavour. In other cases, it can be covered over, and if worse comes to be, you can try to dilute it out. Over-oaking is generally the result of adding too much wood chips, leaving them in your brew for too long, or selecting the wrong type. A darker chip will be more strongly flavoured compared to lightly roasted options, but this does not matter if you leave them in for too long. You still extract the flavour over time, and this will keep happening until the brew is saturated. Admittedly, this saturation point will be achieved much sooner if you add more chips, or of a kind that is even darker. This applies even if we're not talking about oak wood chips. As a result of this, it is easy enough to do, and it's one reason why you should be at least a little cautious in using oak chips or any other wood chip for that matter. Over-oaking itself is typically identified by two things: a very dark colour and a very bitter taste. Both stem from the same root cause, tannins. Tannins are a very large group of molecules that are very astringent, which is why they taste bitter. They are also generally rather reactive with amino acids. Despite this, they are an important element in most flavoured spirits and wine, but in moderation. Over-oaking in part creates a situation where there is too much tannin. This is evidenced by the dark colour, and when you drink it, a very bitter flavour. There are ways to begin mitigating the effects of over-oaking. This will very much depend on how much oak you've used and for how long it's been aging. The first of these are relatively straightforward, and we've mentioned them in the past: egg whites, and other fining agents if you're so choosing to use. By using egg whites in particular, you can take out some of the tannins. This will change the colour, which will make it lighter, and it will also remove some of that astringency. That's going to remove some of that strong flavour. The problem with egg whites is that other than the woody oak flavour, it's also going to start pulling out other flavours in there. Things like vanillin from the lignin in the wood that's used. These and other flavours might be desirable, and so egg whites and other fining agents are a balancing act between how much they strip out and how much you want to keep in there. The second option is activated charcoal. Activated charcoal works in a similar manner to what the egg whites and other fining agents would, but it's a specific category of its own. The activated charcoal helps to grab onto the charged tannin molecules and pull them out. It acts as a sort of filter. The downside to using activated charcoal is that what you're going to be using needs to be quite a bit for the volume, and so economically it's not as good. The other downsides are that it's also not quite as selective. Where egg whites and similar are much better at targeting tannins, activated charcoal has a broader spectrum. If all else has failed, you can try to dilute out the excess oak flavour by blending it with other batches. These can be batches that have not yet been put into oak to age, or other batches that are simply better aged overall, using better ratios and lengths of time. Blending in this manner is very similar to what you would do if you were trying to blend distillates from a pot still. Each of those fractions needs to be mixed in the right amount to get the right balance of flavour, and that's also your final option. Other than diluting it out, you can try and re-distill it. That is, put the entire batch through a still, and it's going to strip out a lot of that oak flavour. Admittedly, this doesn't work with everything. In some cases, more strongly flavoured and sweeter brews that have already been distilled will continue to carry on that oak flavour, as it doesn't separate as readily from the sugars and similar agents within your distillate. This means that distilling works in certain cases. Instances where you can have more control over just how much is coming out and more specific flavours. That way you can take your fractions and select from them for the most balanced outcome that you're after. While nothing is ever perfect, this is a range of options, and they may work at worst to help mitigate the damage to your brewing. At best, you might not have any adverse residual effects. And you could also have anything and everything in between. In fact, in some cases it might even make it worse, depending on how badly you make a mess of things like egg whites. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.